Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of the Patch Podcast presented by Freedom Fueled. I'm your host, Spencer Conrad, and today it's just me. Hannah is going to be out for this episode. She's a little under the weather and doesn't have much of a voice, and so you're stuck with me for the entire episode. Today we're going to be talking about scalpers and flippers, a little bit of the difference, and my opinions on it. So flippers and scalpers do very similar things with very different motives. So I just kind of want to go into the definition of a flipper and then kind of my thoughts on them and then where they kind of get off the beaten path into the scalper territory. So first off, flippers are great for overall they're great for the community, but they're great for preserving collections. So let's say I am a creator, so it's not necessarily a let's say imaginary, but let's say that I'm making a series of 10 patches, and at this point in the series, we're on patch number 5. Patch 3 and 4 are still available on the website, but 1 and 2 are completely sold out. So, in this, if you are a new individual who just joined the community and you like my collection and you would like to start collecting them, but you want the entire collection, you can get 3, 4, and 5 from me, and then you can get 6 through 10, but you can't get 1 and 2. So that's kind of where it goes into flipping territory, and this is why flippers are helpful to preserve collections for the community, because that 1 and 2 that are sold out on my website are still available. You don't have to wait for something negative to happen to an individual who collects so that he's at a point where he has to sell his collection. These are individuals that purchase things with the intent to resell. And so that's super helpful, especially with, like I said, preserving collections, because they can buy something in January and by May, June, July, something in there, those can be completely sold out and completely gone. But someone who's just joining can still backtrack through that collection. And so it helps with the buy, sell, trade mechanism that the patch community is fueled on. Another thing that flippers obviously do is they purchase with the intent to resell. So as a creator, when I drop 50 of a limited run, I want all 50 to sell. But ultimately, if you just want to purchase them and throw them in a bin for whatever, I don't care. I made my money, and that's ultimately why we do this. I would like you to collect our patches, but again, you purchased it. It's up to you. So what flippers allow is that they bought up 5 to 10 of that limited 50 so that 40 collectors got what they wanted, and so they added it to their collection, which allows 10 extra patches to just kind of sit in limbo until a future collector shows up and is able to purchase them. We've all seen the ISO posts, and so it's an awesome opportunity for these flippers to just have these patches in their back pocket. So when someone throws out an ISO post, that they can just throw it up and say, hey, I have one, DM me, and then a deal is made and another patch is added to a collection. Another thing that flippers do is they respect limits. So as the previous example, 50 limited patches. So a flipper is going to buy 5 to 10 at most. It's probably closer to the 2 to 5. And that just allows a lot of people the opportunity who are interested in these, who do collect these. It gives them the opportunity to get their hands on them. That's kind of where it steps into the scalper territory, and I'll talk about that in a minute, where they don't really follow these quantity limits. And so ultimately, flippers are preserving collections, right? And they're respecting collectors, and they're giving people the opportunities to do something. So they're helping in the beginning of the process, and they're helping in the end of the process. And ultimately, flippers are, in my opinion, one of the biggest ways that we can continue to do what we love. We buy, we sell, we trade, and they just kind of make that community a possibility. Now, this is where you get into scalper territories. We kind of talked about my opinions on what defines a flipper, and I talked about this in the intro, that flippers and scalpers almost do the same thing. Their actions are not inherently different, but the motive behind it is what really makes them a flipper versus a scalper. So A flipper is going to buy 5 to 10, and their intention is to make a little money on the side and to preserve a collection. A scalper is intending on buying all 50. You drop 50, they're going to buy as many as possible. And these bigger creators, you'll see a quantity limit. You can only buy 2, 3, 4, X amount per household. The major reason that that is implemented is because these patches are being scalped upon, and the creators are noticing that, and so they're trying to help collectors of their collections not get scalped. So that's really cool on creator side. But scalpers purchase as many as possible. And the reason they're doing that is because if you want one of these 50, they want all 50. The creator has no control of them once the scalper has them in hand. Let's say, and it goes on the supply and demand concept. So I'm a creator. Somebody buys up all my 50. I know it was one individual, and so they're going to scalp. I have two options. I have one, cancel their order. Don't fulfill it. Don't let them get the patches, because it's very suspicious that one individual is purchasing 50 patches, or at least is trying to. Second is I could flood the market with the same thing. So if one individual buys all 50, then cool, I just reprint another 50. And we talked about what a reprint is in a previous episode, so go check that out. I think it was episode 2, so 2 weeks ago, because we missed a week. But anyway, I could reprint, flood the market. There's another 50, so everyone who missed out can do that. Now, if you listen to episode 2, or you're back from listening to episode 2, the reason that is not a viable option is exactly what we discussed in episode 2, the fact that they are limited. This is one of the subjects that the scalpers are preying on, the fact that it is limited. Creators' hands are tied. Once I said I'm only making 50, and I only made 50, there's only 50 out there. So that's kind of where the scalpers work in the supply and demand. They want to buy as much as they can. Now, once they have as much as they can, now they can set their price. So original retail price of the patch at the drop date, let's say it was a 3-inch patch, PVC, Velcro, all of the above. So it's probably going to be $10, $12 depending on the creator. Well, now that everybody wanted these and nobody can get their hands on them, the scalper's probably going to be a dickhead and say 50. And the harsh reality of scalpers is, sadly, most people will pay that $50 because they want that patch. And so the scalpers know exactly what they're doing, and they are generally successful because of the nature of collecting. Especially in that previous example of the beginning of the episode, where you have 1, 2, 3, 5 just released, you want to get all 10 patches, and you missed out on 4 or whatever. You're going to pay the scalper price if you're a purist who wants that full collection. So scalpers exploit quantity limits because they want to overcharge with the supply and demand situation, whereas flippers purchase a limited amount of quantities. They're respectful to the collectors, and they're looking to preserve the collection. And then the big thing about scalpers is they're just in it for the money. They don't care. They're just trying to buy them all up to screw a bunch of people over, make money, so that they can then take that money and buy the next set of drops to screw more people over. And it's just a reality. Big thing is supporting flippers and not blurring the line between the two, because they are two very different things. Like I said, different motive, but same actions. So a big thing that I've seen when a flipper posts a patch is, just because they posted a patch at a outrageous, air quotation mark, price, does not mean that they're a scalper. I saw one Boba Fett patch or something that just got posted for like $400. It had like a signed by the creator poster or something like that. And I thought it was absurd for a 3-inch PVC patch to have a $400 price tag. But after reading through the comments talked about how this is a good price and they want to get more because they already had some, and that this is a great deal. And that's just putting the product at market value. I believe it was a Modern Arms patch that I just saw that somebody was offering $2,500 for, just because it's an incredibly rare patch that this individual wanted to add to their collection. So if an individual came out and said, hey, I want $2,500, $2,800, $3,000 for this patch, that doesn't inherently make them a scalper because it sounds like that's the market value of this exclusive, very rare patch. So that's the big thing, is that knowing the value, Hannah was looking for some Raptor patches. When she put out the ISO post, she got a couple offers, but the offers that they were posting were outrageous. And it was something absurd like 60 for one. So after a couple offers, she eventually settled on paying like $50 for both, which was cheaper than what the first person offered her for just one. So there was a mixture of flippers and scalpers in there. At the end of the day, she was going to pay over the $50 price point for these two PVC patches because that was their market value. But we did encounter what I deem some scalpers who wanted above market value because they're sold out. And some people step into scalper territory just because they have something that they don't want to get rid of. Everyone's seen the situation with a car of how much you want for the car. Car's not for sale. Everything's for sale. Well, if I was to ever get rid of this car, and then they throw out an absurd number, right? So there's sometimes that with patches, and that gets into the scalper territory. But for the most part, scalpers are very intentional. And I would say for the most part, flippers are very intentional. So I am pro flippers and I am anti scalpers as a creator, but also as a collector. And I think that's where I'm going to wrap this episode up. So thank you for tuning in. It's a little slow on the drop situation as far as over here. We're just waiting on some patches. There was some delays and some factory defects that we're uh, working through. So hopefully we'll have some new content for you guys pretty soon. As far as next week's episode, we're still working on it. But we would love some comments as far as topics, future discussions you'd like to hear us talk about, preferably patch related. Um, Other than that, another thing that people have brought up is visuals. And so we are bouncing around with a couple different ideas as far as what visuals will look like. And it is on the horizon. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But other than that, I think I'm going to end the episode. So thank you, and we'll talk to you next time.